All right, we're going to do a brief video here of my analysis on a recent incident posted on social media that made the rounds a couple days ago, particularly on Instagram and Facebook. The incident involved a P320 pistol that is custom assembled from a variety of different components that was termed as or stated as being an out-of-battery firing or an out-of-battery detonation. And I do not believe that to be the case, and I'm going to walk you through why I believe that is so. First of all, here's a couple of images, actual images of the gun shortly after or immediately after the incident occurred. This appears to be right after when they did their best to clear it and reholstered it. You see it's slightly out of battery at this point, which makes sense. The gun just exploded, and it was violent enough that it broke the glass free out of the optic frame or window. Here is the pistol retracted, or the slide is retracted to the rear, and you see that this is a P320 Max slide and barrel with a Romeo 3 Max optic mounted onto an AXG grip module. And we'll come back to this here momentarily, but here is, again, actual video of the incident. And I'm going to go ahead and zoom in as far as I am able to do so on this particular video. And we are going to step our way through this in slow motion. So shot 1, shot 2, shot 3, and then that's actually shot 4, and then the fateful one, shot 5 right here. Okay, so here's what I want to first point out. All right, so we see the gun functioning normally, and these are pretty evidently in battery instances of the gun firing. Let me explain why I believe that to be the case. So if you look really carefully at the slide and where it meets the grip module, in fact, let's go over to this image so you can see precisely what I'm talking about. You have the rear corner of the slide, and where it meets, there's a distinct line on that corner, and it merges beautifully. It's actually nicely blended into the beaver tail of the AXG grip module. All right. So, and again, this is the actual gun that was being used. While we can't see it exactly from that same angle, but you get the idea that where the corner of the slide would be, it would blend in with the corner of that beaver tail of the grip module at that point. So, as we were watching these instances of the gun firing without issue, if you look really carefully, you can see the corner of the slide and how it mates with the grip module in that same point. You can see the change in shadow and light and shadow of the light of the back plate and the upper portion of the beaver tail, and then where it shades on the right-hand side of the gun and grip module, forming that corner that is where it meets together and is blended together. All right. If you're still unsure exactly what I'm looking at here, it's kind of about where that line is. But I'm going to remove that so you can see. So as he fires, we see that the gun fires and it starts in battery and it comes back into battery, because we can see that that line still is matched up. And then he goes to this final shot, and this is where it explodes. And we can see immediately after that obviously the gun is out of battery because it just blew up. And if we step back and forth, we see here is in battery, here is out of battery, in battery, out of battery. And you see very distinctly the change in the slide's position. That slide position right there is very much the same type of slide position as what we see here and on the previous shots. The corner of the slide matches up with the corner of that beaver tail. And after the detonation of the gun, we see that it's slightly out of battery, which makes sense. So when we see that here, if we look closely, we see that it's somewhere probably between 3 to 5 millimeters out of battery, roughly 0.18 to 0.25 inches out of battery after it's detonated. But that's essentially also the amount it would have to be out of battery in order for it to actually occur as an out-of-battery detonation. And so what we would see prior to the detonation is about the same amount of displacement where that slide does not line up with the grip module like we see here. But instead what we see just before this shot is fired and it explodes, that is not the case. I do not see the gun having been out of battery at the moment that the gun blows up. Here's another telltale sign of perhaps what's going on here. If we go back and we look at these previous shots, look at how much gas is expended from the muzzle of each shot. Okay, so that's essentially your baseline. I mean, assuming these loads are all the same, this is about how much gas or smoke we can expect to see from one of these rounds discharging. But when this thing detonates, there's a considerable more amount of smoke or gas coming from all egress points of the pistol, including the muzzle, right? So I believe that is evidence of the fact that this is likely an overcharge. Now, the user stated that he's very careful in his reloading practices and that he's confident he did not make a mistake with the particular load of this round that detonated. But I don't believe the sheer volume of gas that we witness here is indicative of that that appears to be an overcharge to me. Now, let's just suppose it's not, and let's suppose that it could have been as simple as a case rupturing, a case head separation, that particular brass had been loaded previously, whatever. But the amount of gas that we see here, yes, some of that will be gas that's moving through parts of the gun that aren't accustomed to seeing that kind of gas. And so this is vaporization probably as well of some grease and oil and whatnot. But there's still a lot of volume there, which does not seem to be, doesn't match up with what we saw back here. Not even close, not even similar. But again, what we see here right before it detonates is right there, a distinct shadow line of where the slide has matched up with the grip module. And that's evidenced with, it's about the same amount of out of battery positioning as what we see post-picture. And that's supposedly what happened that caused it in the first place, was that it was about that far out of battery when the gun fired in the first place. But that cannot be the case based on the videographic evidence that we see here. So just my pure, honest interpretation of the video evidence that we have before our eyes. And I hope this is helpful to you in your evaluation of potential issues with the P320 pistol platform.